I thought we could define our terms. So when we say decolonizing the curriculum, what do we actually mean? I think I'll probably field this question to Mélina first, as I know you've previously discussed this in a really informative way in a webinar that I watched, and you kind of, managed to communicate some really complex topics in a way that I personally found accessible. So perhaps you can answer this first. So just to repeat, the question was, when we say decolonizing the curriculum, what do we actually mean? I'll put you on the spotlight.
Hi. Thank you so much, Esme, for this fantastic introduction, and all the panelists before. The conversations were so incredible. And I think it's really important the way you framed this is we're all learners. I think you called me an expert, but I like to consider myself just a learner. I'm still learning so much. So the webinar that you mentioned, I did it with one of my colleagues, one of the members of the Anti-Racist Educator, from whom I learned a lot. And he introduced me to one of the scholars of decolonial thought, Maldonado Torres. So he's a scholar of decolonial theory, who clarifies the difference between colonialism as something that was more administrative, so the British colonization of India, for example, that was British troops going and just taking over. And coloniality is more about that hierarchy of power, and in a way the leftovers of colonialism, all the colonization of the mind that happens, thinking of what sort of knowledge is valued and how relationships work in terms of power. So he says coloniality is maintained alive in books, in the criteria for academic performance, in cultural patterns, in common sense assumptions, in the self-image of peoples, in aspirations of self, and so many other aspects of our modern experience. In a way, as modern subjects, we breathe coloniality all the time and every day. So I think those words are really helpful for me when I think about anti-racism, how racism keeps and coloniality seeps into every aspect of our curriculum, of the education system, of modern day society in Britain and the world. So decoloniality refers to efforts at rehumanizing the world, to breaking hierarchies of difference that dehumanize subjects and communities, and that destroy nature as well, thinking about the impact of colonialism on the planet. And decoloniality is also about the production of counter-discourses, counter-narratives, counter-knowledge, counter-creative arts, counter-practices that seek to dismantle coloniality and open up multiple forms of being in the world. So it's really about thinking of decolonizing the curriculum as creating empowering, humanizing narratives in the curriculum, but also being critical, so addressing, criticizing and addressing any imbalances of power that you might see in your whole one-year curriculum. So I'm an English teacher. It's very simple for me to look at the sort of narratives that are created through the stories I teach, through the stories that get people to write and imagine whose voices and perspectives are included. Are they only white, male, cisgender, heterosexual, heteronormative perspectives? So it's really about me decolonizing my mind as well, trying to unlearn any of those colonial practices that I've grown up with, that we've all grown up with. And I think an important point of that is actually acknowledging that education is not neutral. Acknowledging that the curriculum that we teach, that we were taught when we were growing up, is also reproducing these hierarchies of power and narratives that dehumanize marginalized groups. So it really means thinking more critically about the narratives that are taught and how to disrupt them, to dismantle them, and find alternative counter narratives to embed within our curriculum.